Good afternoon. My name is Martin Wing. I'm Managing Director for Kepner Tregoe. And when I do these sorts of things, I sort of like to know who I'm talking to. And obviously it's a little bit difficult to do lots of introductions in this sort of environment. But how many people in this room have heard of Kepner Tregoe before? Ooh, so maybe about half. Okay, that's very good. I'd like to see you all on stand 4 tomorrow, please. So none of you can go without us saying hello. So it's always nice to bump into some clients and people who've used Kepner Tregoe before. Because for those who don't know about Kepner Tregoe has been around for about 50 years. And it's quite strange here being on a technology day at a European Manufacturing Strategies conference, because those people who know KT, they think, well, why are you here on a technology day? Well, we're here to talk about the oldest form of technology known to man and woman. What might that be?
A horse.
Sorry?
A horse.
A horse. Yeah, could be a horse. Our grey matter, our brain. It's the piece of technology that we've used forever. But there's a technology gap that's being created nowadays. There's so much technology out there, and we've just had, for those people who've been in this session just a few moments ago, headed by ILS and Vodafone, and talking about connectivity of devices. There's so much technology out there. But it's up to people, it's up to us as individuals to actually make the most of that technology. And in that environment where technology is growing so quickly, and an environment where time is ever critical, then there's a lot of pressures that are actually created. So thinking correctly when we're under pressure becomes even more critical. But I put it to you, actually, if you don't think correctly whilst you're not under pressure, then you're not going to think correctly when actually you are under pressure. Okay? So I'm going to talk later on about creating the best day. We want to create our best day every single possible day we can. Well, there are a certain class of people who are always striving to be better than they were. There are a group of people out there at the moment who are probably preparing themselves for a sporting extravaganza, which is being held in London next year. Okay, but those people have got 3 things in common. They all want to be the best. Okay, they want to be the best at what they can do, whether it's beat their personal goal or even win a gold medal. They are all making huge sacrifices. They're making choices about what priorities they should put on their lives, on their training routines. Okay, and thirdly, they are taking external advice and help every step of the way. They've got nutritionalists, they've got starting coaches, they've got fast coaches, they've got high coaches, they've got tall coaches. You name it, they've got somebody to help them develop their disciplines so that they can become the very best, so that it becomes instinctive in terms of them being able to react in that sort of high-pressure environment that goes with the Olympics. Now, the high-pressure environment that we deal with is signified by this Airbus A380. Somebody once described continuous improvement to me as trying to refurbish an A380 whilst flying at 30,000 feet. You know, it's virtually impossible because we've got the normal operations to do, but also we want to continually improve. We've got to refurbish, we've got to make better. We've got to sharpen the saw, as one good management guru once said, and that wasn't me, by the way. So in terms of what we need to do as manufacturing organisations, we've got to create that time and space where we can actually sharpen the saw of our grey matter, because we want to be able to use our grey matter effectively all of the time, not just when the pressure is on. Because if we can't do it normally, how will we do it when the pressure's on? Okay? Good, effective, decisive action is always preceded by clear thinking. I don't think you'll argue with that. So in the context of continuous improvement, and if you're embarking on lean and other improvement initiatives, I've got here 8 key decisions that we should be focusing on to make sure that we prepare for things and we practice things and get people thinking the right way, but also understanding what these questions are and how we react to them when the pressure is on, when we have got targets to meet. So in terms of these 8 questions, I've got them listed here, and there's 4 of them that I'm going to pick out and just go into in a little bit more detail. If you want to talk to me about all of the 8 questions, we've got a white paper on the stand and you can come and see us over the next couple of days. So we won't be going through all of these, but we're going to be talking about those in blue. So we're talking about what do we want to achieve in our operational excellence journey. And we're going to be talking about how will we scope the business process value stream and also what our priorities actually are. Those other things are, of course, important, how we're going to engage and sustain the involvement of the leadership team, and also how effectively will we measure success. Again, still important questions. Choices that we have to make in order to set out our stall for continuous improvement and then execute over a period of time. 4 other questions, again, we'll highlight those in blue, or we'll talk more about those in blue. So what capabilities do we need to acquire or develop? And of course, that all depends where you currently are. How can we organise ourselves so that everyone is clear on what their roles are? Some people like ambiguity. Okay, I think in a continuous improvement environment, you've got to thrive on ambiguity because you're trying to create change. So yes, we want some clear roles for people in the future, but as we go along that journey, there's a deal of ambiguity that we've got to be comfortable to accept. What cultural behaviours do we need to build and sustain so that every day is our best day? So that every day we think clearly every single day. And how can we ensure the previous barriers to success can be avoided and the new ones dealt with? So those are my 8 questions, and they're based on a lot of work that KT has done over the last 50 odd years, and also a book that was written by one of our leadership team a few years ago. So again, those principles are well known and documented. And if you haven't seen the documents, again, come and see me. I'm not going to go into that now. So let's just focus on, first of all, that number 1 question. What are we going to achieve? We have to have a target. We've got to have a focus. It's no point just saying, yeah, we've got to continuously improve, or we're implementing lean. Why? What are we trying to achieve? There's an organisation that I'm aware of who have a facility in Budapest. And they had a cycle time that was 80 days. This is 5 years ago. 80 days from raw material in to finished product coming out of the door. They set themselves a goal. They said, we've got to have a cycle time of 10 days. Wow, that really challenges the organisation, doesn't it? We're going to go from 80 days to 10 days. They've actually achieved 8. So they've actually taken 72 days out of their cycle time by making sure they've got a clear focus that everybody's looking at, that everybody's focused on. And yes, of course, there's lots of things that are going on in order to do that. But without that focus, how do they know when they're successful? People want to be successful. So driving towards a target is an essential part of having an operational improvement program. Not just having a project or a number of projects, but what does it mean for the organisation? What's that ultimate driver? The presentation I was listening to earlier on was saying we've got to turn from a focus on cost reduction to value creation. That's creating value. That's aligning the organisation so that they know what they're there to do and what they're there to achieve. Okay? Now, having a goal, of course, is only one thing. Great, yeah, we're going to get to 8 days or we're going to get to 10 days. You've got to have that goal so that you can then establish the right process, the right programme of work, the right sequence of activities. Without having that goal, you can't define the work. So having that goal clear will help us identify then what those systematic set of steps are that are required in order to meet that goal. And of course, having a systematic set of steps in terms of a process, for those who know KT, is what KT is all about. We've got systematic sets and steps and processes that can help guide the thinking for everybody in the organisation, from the boardroom down to the shop floor. And of course, as the data increases, because we've got more technology that's producing more information for us to work on, and we've got more experienced people, and we've got more graduates to give jobs to, we've got so much intelligence there, we've actually got to make sure that we put it through a process of gathering, sorting, organising and analysing to achieve that end result in the most effective way. So technology has certainly got a part. Technology provides us with lots of inputs and lots of information, but we've still got to process that in terms of our grey matter. Now, I'm not quite sure about the latest scientific research, but certainly a few years ago I read a paper and it was saying, we only use 12% of our brains, okay, in terms of the work that we actually do. Wow! Okay, so there's a lot of untapped potential there. So let's put some structure around that so that we can use it to its best effect. The target that this organisation in Budapest now has for its cycle time is 5 days. So they've gone from 80 days down to 5 days. What do you think that's going to do for the rest of the organisation? Sorry, that was a rhetorical question. I'm not looking for any answers yet. In terms of what that does, it actually surfaces so many other issues around the organisation. If you're going for a target in terms of cycle time, you've still got issues in design, you've got issues in purchasing, you've got issues in logistics and distribution. It's not just about the cycle time inside the factory, it actually surfaces issues right the way across the organisation. So it's important that we've got to have that goal. So that's our first question. The second question is, then if we've got that goal, what are the value stream, or the third question in this case, what are the value stream priorities? Okay, and we work with an automotive manufacturer, an automotive supplier, sorry. They do a bit around interiors and instrumentation panels and a load of other sorts of things. And in terms of understanding the value stream priorities, when you're actually spending €1 million on premium freight every month, okay, it's not hard to understand what some of your priorities might actually be. Okay, sometimes it's not as clear as that, but if you set yourself a target that's actually going to drive out what some of those uncertainties are and what some of those priorities might be, it's actually a little bit easier to identify. So in terms of value stream priorities, yes, we're looking for where there's the most cost. Yes, we're looking for where there's the most waste. Yes, we're looking for where there's the most inefficiencies. But actually, you've got to look at those against the goal that you've established. Okay, because you want to focus on those value stream activities that are going to help you achieve your goal. And that's not a goal of cost reduction. That's a goal of cycle times are going to be 5 days. So that goal becomes very important because it actually helps us prioritise what value stream activities we should look at. Okay? So, yes, we all know about prioritisation matrices. We all know that we should have objectives, we should all have alternatives, and we should all have risks, or we should all be looking at the risks and making sure we're managing them. That's not new. Okay? The fact is we've got to make sure that that's data-driven. We've got to make sure that we're taking into account all of the constraints that are in place. Have you ever been involved in any decisions around resourcing projects and the people turn around and say, yeah, we've got plenty of people to work on these projects? No. Resource is at a premium. There might be 100 projects that we want to do, okay, but we've only got enough resource to cope with a certain percentage of that. So prioritisation, yes, we need our objectives, yes, we need our alternatives, yes, we've got to look at our risks, but we've also got to embrace change at a rate that the organisation can deal with it. So prioritisation based on resource availability in line with the goal that we're trying to achieve is something that we've got to take a lot more attention to. So making choices about projects, being disciplined in the decisions that you're making both before you initiate those projects and then also whilst you're executing those projects, becomes ever more critical. Question 5, just from my list. So if we think about capabilities that actually need developing, it's quite evident that we've got a lot of people in the room here, and I actually expect that most of you are very good problem solvers. You make decisions every single day. Okay, but if I put you all in the same room and ask you to solve the same problem, I'm not sure you'd necessarily go about it in exactly the same way. That research was done by Ben Tregoe and Charles Kepner many years ago. They spent some time working, or they were working for the time, with the RAND organisation. And they did some research work into why people who've been through West Point training, they made fundamentally different decisions. Given the same set of data, they made quite different decisions. And given the same set of data, the same knowledge and background and experience that these people have, they came to completely different conclusions about problems that they were faced with. Why was it? It was down to how they were processing it. Okay, so in terms of developing capabilities, one of the fundamental capabilities that have to be developed in any improvement initiative is how we solve problems. How we recognise what a problem is in the first place, and then how we actually go about solving it. That's what KT's been doing for 50 years. So, in terms of looking at how we develop those capabilities, it's important that we actually make sure that we're not just thinking about the capabilities that are developed in a workshop environment or a training setting. And we've all experienced those training workshops that actually they don't seem to go anywhere. And what's the purpose? And that's typically because they're not supported. They're not focused on what are the end results that we're trying to achieve. I'm going back to that focus again. It's not aligned with the process to actually deliver the value. There's that value stream and the priorities. It's not integrated into the performance system and the leadership, and it's not actually coached on a day-to-day basis. We've got to get those elements in place to ensure that when we try and apply the grey matter, that it's being reinforced every single day. Just like Andy Murray with his coach, he gets it reinforced every single day about what he's got to do on his serve, what he's got to do on his volley. Just like all these athletes preparing. We've got to have those disciplines reinforced at every appropriate point in time when the pressure isn't on, so that when the pressure is on, it becomes instinctive, and we do it as a matter of course. Some people, some organisations I've worked with have asked me about, okay, well, we're developing capabilities, but what's the difference between management capabilities and leadership capabilities? And I use this visual to try and sum this up. And we all know that we want to achieve some sort of result in terms of whether that be a certain yield or a certain throughput or product quality, whatever it might be. And that's underpinned by a certain series of activities, so the process flow maybe. But then those activities are actually underpinned by the behaviours, the attitudes, the skills and knowledge of the people that we employ, the people that we work with. People can't just produce results. They've actually got to carry out activities using their skills and knowledge with the appropriate behaviours and attitudes so that those activities are performed excellently every single day in order that we get the results that we're looking for. And from my experience, it tends to be that management has an increase in focus the further up this triangle you get. Managers are very focused on what are the results and what are the activities that we've actually got to achieve. And I'm not saying they're not important, of course they are. But the great leaders in organisations, whether that be in the boardroom or even on the shop floor, the great leaders, and you know we're not talking about people in the boardroom because there are lots of good leaders out there on the shop floor who get followed, okay? They care about behaviours, attitudes, skills and knowledge. And that's where they focus their endeavours. If we make sure these are right, working in the processes that are priorities, focused on delivering the end results, then we've got a much better chance of making some of these improvement initiatives that we've been hearing about already today sustainable. Okay, because at the end of the day, if it's written on a piece of paper or it's written in a process, it may not get followed. It's down to the people. We've got to work with the people. So, that's question 5. Sorry, gone the wrong way. Question 7 on my list was, what are we doing to make our best day every single day? We work with an organisation down in Broadstairs in Kent, an organisation called Fujifilm Specialist Ink Systems. They actually make ink for both screen printing and also digital printing. Okay, so you've got one of the digital printing presses that they have here. Now, they've been on a bit of a transition. They've been on a bit of a journey because making screen ink is quite a different process to making digital ink. Okay, making ink for screens that you might make advertising hoardings with, it's quite lumpy. The quality of it can vary. Okay, you've got lots of manual interventions. With digital ink, you buy a cartridge and you put it in a machine. Okay, so they had to change their whole mindset. They had to get into a space where they were actually going to make good ink, consistent ink, same quality every single day. That was quite a mind shift for that organisation. And they went about it. It's been about a 5-year journey for them. It's not a case that it happens overnight. It's been a 5-year journey, but it's paid dividends for them now because, of course, they've put those disciplines in all of their digital ink manufacturing processes. What do you think's happened? They apply the same processes now to their screen ink. And of course that now, they don't have the yield issues that they had. They don't have the customer complaints that they had. They've been able to apply their best day for digital ink and make it their best day for making screen ink. So they're focused on various measures. What are our KPIs? What are our focuses? What are our operational disciplines every single day? Making sure that we've got routines that we follow every single hour of every day, of every week, of every month, okay, consistently. And yes, we've got lots of management reporting and we're focused on safety, equipment, quality, delivery and cost. And at the heart of it here is a problem-solving framework from KT. We're not responsible for their success. They're responsible for their success. We just paid a little part of it. But what they've actually done over the last 5 years meant that they won the Works Management Best Factory Award in 2011. So for the best process plant. So they've had some good success, so all credit to them. It's down to them and how they apply things to make their best day every single day. So, in wrapping up, thinking correctly under pressure. There's a quote here taken from a guy called Lonnie Wilson, whose book, actually I've given you, you've got a voucher to collect a management book at our stand over the next 2 days. It's one of those books if you actually want it, written by Lonnie Wilson. And he says any change initiative has got to be underpinned by these 3 things. It's got to have, you've got to answer these and say yes, of course. Do we have the leadership to make this a success? Do we have the motivation to make this a success? And do we have the necessary problem solvers in place to make this a success? If you don't, then you've got to get some help. Just like these Olympic athletes, we've got to have some coaching and some help. So with those 3 points, it's a case of, right, okay, where are we? Where are you as an organisation? Do you have those 3 things in place? So I hope you've taken something away from the presentation today. I don't think there's any time for any questions. So thank you very much for your time and attention.